Sportbiketrackgear.com, and today we're going to install Graves Smog block-off plates on our 2015 Yamaha YZF-R1 project bike. Okay, they're inexpensive, right? This is a project, okay, and we're going to run through the whole procedure with you. This is definitely more involved than the other things we've done thus far to the motorcycle. So this will be a great kind of how-to if you decide to do this on your own. If you're uncomfortable on any level, take it to a licensed motorcycle mechanic and have them do it. Let's talk about why we need to put this part on our motorcycle. We've replaced the exhaust system. So we've eliminated the muffler box and the cat, the exit valve. We still have that smog block off, or the smog system on there. It injects some air into the system. And what we'll end up with on D-cell is some backfiring, kind of pops and farts a little bit, right? We want to get rid of that. And also, you can't get a good clean tune on this bike with that air injection system, the smog system, in place after you've modified the exhaust. So it's a must-have mod if you have done anything with the exhaust that's removing that catalyst. What do we need to do? Where do we need to go to do this? Okay, we're going to start with removing a rear seat and a fuel tank. Get the rear seat off the R1, you just fold up the corner like so, and remove both fasteners from either side. And just to point out, this is the first time I've been underneath the fuel tank and pulling the air box off on this R1, so bear with me. This will be a journey for all of us. Get our seat off. We're going to pull some trim from the sides of the fuel tank. That's going to allow us the access necessary to remove our fuel tank. So far, tools used, 5mm Allen. I've got a 4 in my hand now. Slide these trim pieces forward, put them somewhere you're not going to step on them, or your cameraman's not going to step on them, so you don't break the trim. Like so. Now we can get down to the actual fasteners for the fuel tank. Back to our 5. Up here, there it is, 5mm on either side of the fuel tank. There's some mounts that bolt up to the frame of the bike. Right here. Okay, now we've got 10mm fasteners used back here for our Motion Pro spinner T-handle. Grab a 10 wrencher for backup. And off that comes. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to get this tank propped up a bit. How is the tank light? So I can have a look underneath this to see what I need to do. If you want to swing around this way, Tyler. 2 vent hoses here. Release the clamp. And we might need to grab a pair of pliers too. Break this hose loose. Okay. Oh, that one is on there. There we go. Okay, vent hose is off. Looks like we have one lone electrical connector here. Pretty simple. And then we have our fuel line. And let's get a look at this. This is a little different design for the fuel line than I think I've seen before. So we're going to need to study this for a second and see what it's going to take to release that. It looks like this is going to need to pull this way. Get myself a screwdriver here. Get in there and release that. This is the lock for the pressure line on the fuel pump. Okay, we've got our electrical off, we've got our vent hoses off. This is a new style fuel line. I haven't seen this before, so you see I went and got an old fender cover. I got it laying on the frame here, supporting the tank. And I need to release this. And there we go. Hear that release, and to get it to lock into place, you push it in once again. May get a little fuel spray here. That fender cover will help to absorb that. And go ahead and put our tank to the side. I've actually got another fender. Wow, is this thing light? Got another fender cover set up over here. Okay. Now we've got some good access here. We're going to need to get the air box off the bike, and this looks to be, honestly, pretty standard stuff here at the end of the day. I don't see anything that really looks all that different from what I've looked at on other R1s. We need to get this off here. Breather hose, clamp. Okay, slide that off. And now, you need to get all the screws out of the air box. I'll go ahead and use a power screwdriver here just to speed this process up. If you don't have one, just use a standard Phillips. Right? It's going to take you a few extra minutes. Okay. There's all the screws from the airbox cover. Let's see what we got down here. Okay, we're going to need to disengage the upper fuel injectors. Save this right here. Wire them retainer, and there is our upper airbox. Velocity stacks right there. Obviously our air filter up here in the front. Typically, and it looks like it's the same way with this, we've got some what will be captured fasteners. Look like they're 5mm that can all be accessed through cutaways here. Hopefully I've got enough length with this. Yep. Go back to our T-handle for this part. Looks like pretty standard stuff here. Is anything way out of the ordinary? Reminds me quite a bit of the 2012 R1 that we built actually. Okay, I got all the fasteners out of the lower portion of the air box. We've got a vent line here. This is typically going to run over to the air injection system, and there is our lower air box assembly. Just got to get this stepper motor unplugged here, and be able to take this over to the bench and get it out of the way. Now, something you need to be very, very aware of. Okay. You've got all your throttle bodies open right now. Okay. You want to make sure that if you drop anything on top of any of these, you get it off there before you bolt this back together. Otherwise, the first time the bike started, these open, it's going to fall in there. You see when you rotate the throttle on this, okay, it does not actuate these, right? That is done through the electronics on the motorcycle. So that's actually a plus, because you can't manually open that and drop pieces in there, but I want you to double check each one of those four to ensure you have not dropped anything in there. Okay, now we need to get our T-handle out and remove this piece of ductwork here. Got a spacer that goes with that. Okay. Looks like we've got a sensor that's connected to it here. I have something that's fastened to it here in the center. Let's push through a grommet here. Looks like that's actually going to be the mount for that air injection system. So all I'm going to do is pull up, release that grommet, and go ahead and use this connector, like so. Okay, now we're getting there. Here is that factory air injection system. You can see the intake hose is over here that runs to the bottom of our air box, right? And right here is the valve. This will be unplugged over here, and that is not going to be reused. It's another way to lose a little bit of weight on the bike. I don't know that you'd measure this in pounds, but nevertheless you are shaving some weight from your motorcycle with this. Get this bad boy disconnected here. There we go. Okay, and that plug will just stand unused now. You'll see that on top of each one of these, we have a 5mm Allen. And with the angle that we've got here, there's a couple of ways to proceed. You can first try and use an Allen on an extension with a wobble. It is pretty tight, so I may not be able to get down in there and do it this way, but we're going to give it a shot. There's typically, from the factory, let's look at the wrong size, I don't think it's 6. From the factory, there's typically some Loctite used. So my experience with these have been they usually come out a little to the hard side. Okay, so let's see if these are the same as what I'm used to previously. Definitely come out a little harder. So now we need to remove all 4 of these fasteners across the board. And with this universal, we can get in here. We may not be able to. This Allen's a little long, so I'm gonna have to use a combination of this setup here and a hand. It's a standard 90-degree Allen wrench. So this process here is gonna take a couple of minutes, right? So be patient and get all 4 of the bolts out. Right? Okay, got all the fasteners out. We're gonna show you that in just a hot minute here. The Graves kit includes a decent set of instructions. Okay, they are talking about stuff like, you know, removing the radiator and those kind of things. I didn't do any of that. I haven't had to do that yet to put any of these in. So, you know, watch the video and you make your decision how you want to proceed. But it does clearly show you, right, what you're using, what you're replacing, so that when you do this, you get the end result that is intended. Included in the kit, it's very basic parts, right? A couple of machined aluminum pieces, Graves logo on it, kind of cool. And we've got a plug for the actual intake that goes to the bottom of the airbox. Simple parts, that's why they're cheap. Okay, I've got all the bolts out. Let's go ahead and pull this bad boy off here. And I will show you what stays, what goes. And then I also had an idea while I was working on this for the air intake duct. You know, remember it had this push pin that kind of went through it that was there to secure the air injection solenoid, which we are not taking with us on this journey. So I think I've come up with a way to plug that hole, because I don't really want to leave that hole wide open. I think that's a bad choice. So I've got a wire loom that is connected to our air injection system right here. Go ahead and can't slide that out of the way. Got a fighter here. He likes where it's at. There we go. Okay, got that released, and there's the harness that it's holding. We're probably gonna have to do something to secure that, because that looks like that could move up into the radiator fans. And here's what we've got. All right, getting rid of the cylinder. You've got a little bit of weight here. You're going to lose some weight, and you're going to also create some space here inside of the actual engine bay itself. So put this to the side for now. And our covers. You're going to leave in place, right, those little valves. You do not take those out. And you see this raised portion right here, this boss? You want to make sure that this lines up like so with that, okay? Otherwise, if you try and put it in the other direction, right, it is not going to seat properly. So turn it like that. There was Loctite on these from the factory. They don't thread out super easy. I already kind of gave you a heads up there. You could put a little more Loctite on this if you want to. I've never really felt the need to do so, because they still have enough on there that they're going to go in hard enough. These are not, in my opinion, they're not going to rattle themselves loose. Okay, once again, this is going to need to go in the up direction towards the back of the motorcycle to allow for that boss to slip in there. And that gets the cover all the way down. If you don't install these right, you turn aside, and I have seen them installed the other way, what'll happen is you're gonna have an air gap there, and this thing is going to make this really cool noise when you start the bike, and you're gonna think there's something wrong with your engine. I'm gonna go ahead and get these bolts started and tighten them down, so when we come back, we're gonna begin reassembling the R1. Okay. Like I said, I've got the plates all bolted down. I want to secure this harness. I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of pull this back and get up against this TPS sensor here. I think that'll be a good spot, because this could easily make it into that radiator fan, and I don't want that to happen. So go ahead and just use just a light gauge cable tie here. Nice and clean, no big deal. Trim the end. Okay, now, remember this was the actual grommet, right, that the mount for the air injection system passed through. What I did is I actually took the air injection system mount. It had this plastic button on it, and it had a whole situation that wrapped around the solenoid itself. I cut that off. I just trimmed this a little bit with a die grinder just to give it a reasonably decent look. And now it's going to allow me to seal off the hole. It's a good, clean result. I was able to do it without going out and buying anything. And you know what you don't want to have happen either is you don't want the piece to ever fall out. And if this is the stock piece that they had in there, it's going to stand there and it's going to work well. We're not going to have any issues. So I chose to run with that. I'm going to go ahead and get this bad boy back in place here. Get this ready to bolt up. Remember, we've got our intake air sensor there. Okay, get that all set up. Make sure we get that located in. There's a hollow section of the frame right there. We want that all in there. Let's go ahead and get our fastener along with the spacer that they had in there. So first thing is line that up just right. And get our spacer in there. Run this bad boy down. Like so. Okay, and that is going to secure the wiring harness as well as deal with the hole in that intake air duct. Okay, we're ready to start going back together. We've got our lower air box. This was the intake for the air injection system solenoid. The Graves kit includes this rubber plug, like so. I'm going to go ahead and fit that into place. The stock clamp's not going to work anymore because the diameter of this plug is the external diameter is thinner now than we had with that hose, so it's just not going to work. At the end of the day, you could probably just push it on there and leave it if you're so inclined, but myself, I want to make sure it's as secure as possible. Just grab a short length of safety wire here and go ahead and just wire this up real quick. Just enough so it puts a little tension on the hose. You don't have to ever worry about that coming off. Trim that. Go ahead and take the safety wire pliers and just kind of push that into the hose a little bit, like so. Okay, now all these fasteners for the lower air box, these are all captured, okay, so they can't fall out, and they do that for a reason, because if in fact any of these rattled loose, they could potentially make it into one of the throttle plates. Now, very important step. I want you to look here, and you can see I've actually got a little bit of debris on top of that one throttle plate. Now I want to make that go away. What I like to do before I do any reassembly is I like to grab a blowgun, because we do have a compressor here in the shop. I like to just grab a blowgun, and even if I don't see any debris, I'm going to do that as a preventative measure. Because the last thing in the world I want to do is damage the engine while we're putting on something as frivolous as Smog block-off plates, okay? So now we've got our lower air box assembly that needs to be reinstalled. Remember, we've got our wiring harness here for that stepper motor. Okay, let's go ahead and slip this bad boy all down in here into place. Wiggle that around. That literally, you'll feel it seat right in there, okay? Take a quick look around, make sure that everything is going where it should without any issues or fight. And just felt a little tighter over here than maybe it needed to be. So I'm going to look into that real quick. Slide that harness up in there a little more. That feels pretty good right there. I'm happy with that. And what we're going to do is, once again, just begin to get some fasteners started. Okay, we don't want to run one down all the way, okay? The goal here will be to just get some fasteners, all the fasteners started, and then we'll begin to apply torque. You want a good even pull. You see, this is a project, and it may not be for everyone. What you're looking at here, if you're like, man, I don't know. If you're feeling that way, take this thing in and have a motorcycle tech do it, a licensed motorcycle tech at a repair shop, dealership, aftermarket, whatever you have available to you locally is what you'll want to choose there. You make mistakes with this project, they could be, create, fatal errors and issues that could be very expensive to correct, and there will be no warranty to bail you out because they will inspect it. It'll be very clear to them that the damage was inflicted because of service work improperly performed. Okay, I'm going to start here in the center. Just get that one to seat down nice and lightly. We're going to come out here to the outside. Same deal there. Get these all just seated. Good even pull, and then I'm going to come down to the end and literally just run right across it. Just applying some very even hand torque. When I'm done with this, I want to take a good look at these velocity stacks, make sure that we haven't dislodged anything, created any issues for ourselves. Everything looks to be moving freely, and now we're ready to come in with our upper airbox cover, upper fuel injectors. Once again, take a look at this. Take a look in the airbox as well. Grab the blowgun if you have one. If you want to, you can blow this out a bit if you choose to do so. Let's go ahead and drop that upper airbox cover, fuel injector assembly. Now we need to put all of the fasteners back on the top of this. When we come back, I'm going to have this all buttoned up. We're going to hook the fuel injectors back up, this breather hose. We're going to be ready to put our fuel tank back on. All right, got my airbox cover all on, injectors all plugged back in, breather hose. I've double, triple checked, we're all buttoned up, everything is good to go there. Fuel tank, ready to go back on. I'm gonna go ahead and push the hose till it engages, and then that ever important lock, get that dialed in, right? I pull my fender cover out of the way here, and get a look at the hoses and electrical connector again. It's going to be a little hard to show you this with the angle that we've got working here, but this is just going to be a reverse of what we showed you earlier with the removal. The key element here is anytime you're taking your tank off, right? One thing that you definitely need to be cognizant of is the routing of that fuel line. If you misroute it and it kinks, you're gonna have a fuel delivery issue, okay? That fuel delivery issue can result in a few different things. Maybe a no-start condition if it's kinked real bad, or sometimes you'll just have very low power because you're not getting enough fuel, leans the motor out, which is not good. So I'm gonna take a look at that. That all looks good to go. And drop this bad boy down in place here. Vent lines pulled up a little bit, push those back down. Okay, fuel tank in place. Main fastener here at the back. Get that one in. We have our fastener up front here, as well as the two on the sides. I need to make sure that we've got everything lined up good here so that the tank is dropping down. There we go. Okay, 5mm Allen to do this part. So really from here, this is pretty basic stuff now. You know, we showed you all this in the first part of the video. All you need to do is reverse that process and you'll get your bike all back together. So when I come back, we're gonna just kind of outline what we did here and close it up. Okay, we've got it all wrapped up. Our Graves Smog walk-off plates are on the motorcycle now, right? What do we want to do? Well, before we ride it, it's like anything else, right? You do a project like this, you have the whole bike apart. The first thing you should do is run it and evaluate it. So we'll just really quickly do that. I think that's enough right now. And I would say, you know, I'll check it for leaks, that kind of stuff. Probably run it a little bit more before I actually ride it. But that's it. That is a project, okay? And you can do some damage if you do it wrong. You follow the stuff that I showed you and use that with the instructions that Graves or any other manufacturer for the block-off plate supplies. Odds are you'll be able to do it yourself if you have a reasonable level of mechanical skill. If you're nervous about it, take it to a dealer. This is a really expensive machine. The last thing you want to do is over a $40 part, right, damage your motor. This is also a critical mod if you have done the exhaust, eliminated that X-up, eliminated that muffler box and catalyst. So it is very important. A lot of people will end up doing this. This is our Graves Smog block-off plate install on our 2015 Yamaha YZF-R1.